We are here. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for coming through this morning. It is the prodigious professor at Proclamation News and Gammons. Thank you all for actually coming in to support the 2021. Last night we had weather amid warnings of minus 13 degrees. Over the course of the weekend, it's going to start throughout the week. So thank goodness the weather climate is changing. Thank you all for coming through today. I really appreciate everyone supporting the show. We've had weather soaring even as low as minus 13 throughout Essex. Supposed to have some more snow coming, but it looks like it's going to warm up looking out the window today. And I've been looking through the weather forecast, so hopefully this is going to thaw out. And you dog walkers, your dogs and your animals are going to thaw out in the weather as well. Absolute shocking absorbing information the cold weather. Anyway, I'm a capital P in proclamation. I'm a capital P in persuasion. I'm a capital P in punctuation. I'm a capital P in provocative. I'm a capital P in propaganda. I'm a capital P in purity. I'm a capital P in progressive. I'm a capital P in progression. I'm a capital P in philanthropist. I'm a capital P in populism. Absolute populism. Top 10% on Castbox, and we're building a following on YouTube. Proclamation News and Gabbons on Castbox. Proclamation News and Gabbons on YouTube. And we've got a Proclamation News and Gabbons on Facebook as well. So please find us and follow us on all networks. Welcome all newcomers supporting our show daily with brand new journalism. I'm not thinking about me, I'm thinking about your safety, because our safety in the whole United Kingdom, our democracy, our safety is paramount, absolutely. So I'm caring about you, giving you the amid warnings throughout the weather, throughout our constituency of the United Kingdom. Road warnings, think safety, think first. I'm always thinking about others before I think about myself. Obviously, I'm polarising I'm generating my own voice. I like the sound of my own voice, but when I'm a critical thinker and I can think outside the box, why shouldn't I be sitting in the driving seat giving you a great verdict of, the projection of the journalism that I'm about to give? Thank you. God bless. Stay tuned. Share the news. We're going to build a bigger, better, brand new edition of Proclamation News and Gabbons. Absolute phenomenal. It's like euphoria to your ears. I'm very emotive. I've got characteristics, I've got charisma, and I've got persuasive, scripted, edited text off the top of the tip of my tongue. COVID-19, too early to decide on summer holidays, says Hancock. So don't think about booking the summer holidays just yet. It's too early to know whether summer holidays can go ahead. The Health Secretary has said. Matt Hancock said that there was still a lot of uncertainty, but ministers were doing everything possible to make sure people could have a holiday this year. He told BBC he has booked his own summer break in Cornwall months ago. Labour and some Tory MPs have called for clarity after ministers urged public not to book holidays at home and abroad. Ministers have also criticised the Commons as fuel uncertainty for travel companies already struggling in the pandemic. Thank you all for coming through with the show. Please share with your friends who want more subscribers. Businesses also criticised the comments as fuel uncertainty for travel companies already struggling in the pandemic. It follows a confusion after Transport Secretary Grant Shapps has warned against booking breaks at home or abroad. Further restrictions on international travel are due to be introduced on Monday. Mr. Hancock said it was too early to know which coronavirus restrictions may still be in place over the summer, but that he understood people wanted to make plans. He told BBC Breakfast people are yearning for the certainty over whether they can have a summer holiday, but as said, pandemics are difficult times and there's a lot of uncertainty. We are doing everything that we possibly can to make sure that people can have a holiday this summer, but the vaccine rollout is absolutely essential to that, he continued. Health Secretary told BBC Radio 4's today's programme that before summer holidays, the priority would be making sure people can see loved ones again. He said it's too early to say that when this might happen, but the Prime Minister will set out more details in a week beginning the 22nd of February. Meanwhile, Mr Hancock said 9% of the people have accepted an offer of a coronavirus vaccine, much higher than predictions. About 75% would take a jab. Prime Minister Boris Johnson has urged 2 million people who have yet to accept their offer of a Ministers tangle once more. Analyst by Laura Quensberg, political editor. It is a classic COVID situation. Ministers' remarks clash with each other. It emphasises that or facts sometimes because they just do not exactly what the situation will be. So they will have no solid decision to explain. And if they don't know, well, there's not much they can tell us. There is a separate conservation about just how vital clarity and government communication during pandemic crisis, whether ministers stick with exactly the same script, is a matter that can affect life and death. I'm going to add my own depiction. You know, I'm evaluating these stories, so I'm going to give you my own depiction after reading Laura Quensberg, political edit. There are also ways for experienced politicians to answer questions, even if it makes some people shout at the telly to turn off the radio. But when it comes to looking more than a few weeks into the future in a way that we want to, all too often, ministers have ended up in a tangle. So we're looking at ministers, we're looking at, political editor Laura Quensberg. I mean, I'm a political editor, aren't I? I'm on here, I'm polarising my own opinions, expressing our feelings, how we're all feeling emotionally. Deteriorating. We're all deteriorating, aren't we? Our mental health's deteriorating. You want to get, some of us are so eager to get in your friend's house, so eager to go into parties and social gatherings or whatever you want to do. This is me for the remainder of my life. This is what I enjoy. Talking about politics, keeping out of harm's way. I'm keeping my own environment, enjoying a nice life. So this is how I'm going to tackle this. I mean, everyone wants to go back to normal. I know your pain. I know your stress. I know some people can't maintain a life without life outside and life around your friends, being wrapped around your friends, having a good time. So I understand your mental health and your respite from your family and all that, all the rest of it. You want to get out, have a break. I totally understand where you're all coming from. I've been there. I've done it. I've got the handbag. I've got the hat, and I've got the vest. But I know where you're coming from. But looking at a perspective for everyone going on to ministers, when can we go back to normal? And the ministers are then pressurising Boris Johnson. When can we go back to normal, Boris Johnson? Make him feel absolutely all kinds of extraordinary inside Westminster Parliament. So, as Boris Johnson, he's got to think about the aspects of this time last year. What was the R rate then? How many people were affected then? And then if we let off the R number in the summer, people were still catching the COVID. Is it going to be stupid enough to let everyone go abroad, do this, do that, or the other? Is it, got to weigh up the similarities and differences, absolutely, from the previous year. Are we going to get out of it? Are we going to pull through it? That is all I can say. That is really all I can say. But people really need to think when they start sitting there being a critic within the political defence for whichever party or region. You need to think of the pressure any prime minister would be under. He's got to look at the similarities, the differences. He's got to evaluate the situation from last year. How much is the R number now? He's got to speak to the scientific advisors, health advisors, and they've got to just try and tackle it to the best of their abilities. Also, they still want to get the economy moving, don't we? We all want to get back to work. We all want to be earning our own money and our own living. But this is my living. This is what I do day in, day out. And I intend to do it for the remainder of my life. Any shape or form I know what I'm talking about. People enjoy the show. I've always got about over 2,000 listeners a week on Castbox coming in. And I appreciate everyone coming in to support me. I've actually come into proclamation news and gatherings. Anyway, Mr. Hancock's comments came out after Mr. Johnson and Shapps urged people not to go ahead and book holidays. Mr. Shapps said on Wednesday, people should be booking holidays right now, not domestically or internationally. Mr. Johnson told a Downing Street briefing that people would have to be a little more patient.
With the Prime Minister's official spokesman said booking a summer holiday was a choice for individuals, but the Shadow Health Secretary, Jonathan Handsworth, criticised ministers for not being clearer about what the public could plan for. He said he had yet to book a holiday because he was in the same boat as everyone else. I just want to know what is happening, so ministers need to tell us, he said. The remarks from Mr. Shapp yesterday prompted anger from senior Conservative MP Sir Charles Walker, who accused ministers of ripping out the goalpost of a timetable for lifting COVID restrictions. People need to have something to look forward to, he said. One travel industry leader criticised Mr. Shapp's plea for people to stop making summer plans as purview of non-secure. While Heathrow's airport chief executive said getting back to normality was not just about people's holidays, but also to protect people's businesses and livelihood. John Holland Kay said aviation businesses have gone for almost a full year with virtually no revenue and warned they may not be able to continue without slashing jobs. Henry Joyce, the 10 Creek Holiday Park and campsite in Cornwall, told BBC Radio 5 Live it may be too late, not too soon, to book a spot there over a certain date this summer. He said soaring demand for breaks over the past fortnight meant it was at risk of selling during peak break weeks, which he put down to people being desperate to get away. Thank you all for coming through. NHS reform shake-up to improve care, Hancock says. Health and care services will work more closely all together under plans to reform the NHS in England. The government has said Health Secretary Matt Hancock set out plans for a more integrated, more innovative and responsive NHS. He said he wanted to target burdensome bureaucracy, but Labour questioned the timing of the restructure amid the pandemic and said patients could not be helped without a properly funded social care plan. On the time, and Mr. Hancock says, you've got to do both. When we come out of this pandemic, and we will build back better, stronger NHS. The shake-up will see the law change to reverse reforms of the NHS in England, introduced under David Cameron in 2021. The full white paper, which sets out the proposed future legislation, will be published later. Ministers believe that changes will put the NHS in a better position to cope with an ageing population and a rise in people with complex health conditions. 1 in 3 patients admitted to hospital as an emergency has 5 or more health conditions, such as diabetes, obesity, or asthma, or from 1 in 10 in a decade ago. The Working in Health Service said many of the rules in place were time-consuming, frustrating and stressful. Nigel Edwards at Nuffield Trust think tank said the changes would be rewiring behind the dashboard and should not be too noticeable to patients. Whilst it is not a magic bullet, it could help different parts of the system work more closely together, he added. Analysis is why reform that's important. The ageing population requires different services to work hand in hand, sharing expertise and staff to make sure people get the joined-up care they need. If that sounds like NHS speak, let's take a typical patient with whom the NHS deals. She is in her 70s, has heart disease, the early stage of dementia, and lives alone. She needed regular contact with her heart specialist, support from the community, nurses, and ideally some company from the befriending services which are run by the voluntary sector with the support from councils if she needs to go to hospital, perhaps after all. In an ideal world, she has been treated quickly and then hospital staff will be in touch with community service to arrange the support to allow her to come home. It helps if the staff are working together in integrated teams, sharing records and, at times, working side by side. But in a world there are budgets and are linked to individual services where different organisations are encouraged to complete the tender for work. Polling resources and staff is not easy. The proposals include scrapping and tendering rule, which sees providers and private companies compete to win contracts and to run services. This made it complicated for councils and different parts of the NHS to set up the teams and their polls for their budgets, which have been set up to separate bodies to bid for contracts. Instead, the NHS and councils will be left to run services and told to collaborate with each other to pool resources. Mr. Hancock said the practical implication that is that these changes will allow the NHS to work more closely together with the different parts of the NHS and, crucially, with social care and public health colleagues. At the moment, there are rules set out in law that stop some of working together. We've seen that's been a problem. He's told BBC Breakfast at the heart of the reforms is that the idea you take the budget for the NHS in a local area and you get an integrated team that has social care, the NHS, the GPs, and the hospitals, and they commission and they do the work to spend the money as effectively as possible. Shadow Health Secretary Jonathan Ashworth said Labour have studied the detail, but you cannot just legislate for integration. You need a properly funded social care plan. You need a funded workforce plan. We did warn the government 10 years ago when they introduced the last piece of legislation, Mr. Ashworth said, adding, that was set from the reforms Mr. Hancock voted for, spoke up in favour of. He told BBC Radio 4 today's programme there's still question as to whether these reforms will interrogate care. Mr. Ashworth also said that, although the tendering rule will be scrapped, it was unclear whether the reform would lead to less privatisation. There's also no compulsory tendering of the contract, but contracts can't still go out to the private sector, and far as we can tell, the contracts that have gone out. There's no insistence that we should go back in, he said. But the NHS England Chief Executive Sir Simon Stevens said the move will create a flexible, can-do spirit across the health and care system. The white paper will cite examples of good practice such as a care team at the Royal Derby Hospital, which sees nurses from the community cancer care services and hospital staff working together to plan the discharge of patients. Chris Hobson of NHS Providers, which represents NHS managers, said it would end an unnecessary rigid NHS approach to procurement. The local government association welcomed the plans but said they did not provide the funding to put care services on a sustainable and long-term footing. I mean, that's my new word, procurement. I need a procurement to get back my legal parenting for my children. Absolutely. I'm when you talk about wisdom and knowledge, you're looking in the right direction. It's all here. So it's all here. I'm absolutely full of wisdom and knowledge. I've got widespread jurisdiction about the size of my ear to ear. I've got a massive head. You're looking in the right direction. Social care funding. Mr. Matt Hancock was challenged over the state of social care, which is under pressure with government failing to reform or fund the council-run system properly. In their 2019 election manifesto, the Conservatives pledged to find a cross-party solution to reduce pressures on the sector and provide a long-term funding. Asked about the problem of people not being able to be discharged from hospital because care homes were full, Mr. Hancock said there was a challenge of discharge, but he said it is a challenge of integration as much as it is a challenge of capacity. Mr. Matt Hancock repeated the government's pledge, saying, we're committed to long-term reforms to funding of social care. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We've got about another hour and a half to go, so make sure you stay tuned, subscribe, share. It's proclamation. Here we go.
Matt Hancock's live.
Council GP services in my constituency hospital, Stepping Hill, have shown the benefits of joint working and data sharing to improve care and health outcomes. So, a one case announcement. We know that when bodies work together, people receive better care. So, what a previous journey on this path, highlighting the huge benefits of health and care working together, as well as the challenge of addressing silo working and pressures of pooled budgets. So would my right honourable friend confirm that these proposals will deliver a more streamlined system which will give seamless care and healthier outcomes for my Tudor residents.
It's exactly as my honourable friend sets out. And in particular, I'm glad that she raised data sharing as part of the integration, because it is absolutely critical that we have high quality data sharing where data is protected for the individual, but also shared amongst those who need it for the purpose of joining up care. So you don't, when you go to hospital, have to give all of your details over and over and over again. So if you do go to hospital, your GP knows about it. So that care homes, for instance, GPs and hospitals can compare data for an individual without having repeatedly to diagnose. This is a very, very important agenda for the NHS, which it should approach with confidence as a core part of joining up care.
Mohammed Yazim. Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Speaker. In my constituency of Bedford and Kempston, patients are being left in unimaginable pain and access even emergency dental treatment. Dental practices are struggling to stay open with the impact of COVID on their businesses, and those that have survived are struggling to cope with the backlog. Imposing targets isn't working. So will the Secretary of State include oral health in his future plans and agree on sustainable funding solution with NHS dentists to end the crisis in oral health care?
Mr. Deputy Speaker, the crisis has been very tough on dentistry, and by the nature of dentistry, the infection prevention and control systems in place are a challenge. I look forward to working with the dentists to make sure that this sort of integration can help appropriately for them, and I'm very happy to arrange a meeting between the honourable gentleman and the minister responsible for dentistry to discuss these concerns.
Robert Lager.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I welcome the proposals for more integration and collaboration between the NHS. However, it's vital that these important reforms do not get in the way of investment in NHS capacity and the commitment to recruit 50,000 more nurses. Can the Health Secretary assure the House that they won't, and that the government remains committed to the badly needed new urgent care centres at Stepping Hill Hospital and Tameside Hospital?
Yes, absolutely. Stepping Hill Hospital is it's obviously absolutely vital to his constituents. The urgent care centres are important too, especially ensuring people can have access to treatment closer to home for smaller but yet urgent problems. We also have introduced 111 first, so that people should call 111 before they go to an urgent treatment centre or indeed an A&E, to let them know that they're coming and to know that that is the right setting for them. So this is it's an important part of our wider considerations that will be helped by the measures in this white paper.
Dan Jarvis.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Shamefully, the poorer you are, the younger you will die. And that link between economic deprivation and health outcomes has meant that Barnsley is suffering one of the highest COVID mortality rates in England. Health inequality is an incredibly complex problem, but it is avoidable. So, does the Secretary of State agree that the key to these reforms is whether they will tackle this injustice?
I do. I think that tackling health inequalities is incredibly important. It's a vital part of our levelling up agenda, and he's right to point out the gaps in life expectancy across this country. And I hope that a move to a population health approach, where the focus of the whole local system is on improving the health of the population, not just treating those who ship on needing support, that can help us to tackle health inequalities as a society.
Tom Hunt. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I think a key element of the statement today was its strengthened accountability to this House, which I very much welcome. Would my right honourable friend confirm with me this will mean that as local members of Parliament we are better placed to represent our constituents in this place when it comes to communicating any concerns that they might have
our constituents, and for a reform to take place, needs to make the argument of why that is better for our constituents. And ultimately, when such a large amount of taxpayers' money is spent on a public service, of course it is right that there is accountability for the services that are provided to ministers and through ministers to this House. That is the essence of a democracy, whilst preserving the clinical independence, for instance, over any individual decisions and over decisions, for instance, over the National Institute of Medical Excellence and what drugs are appropriately advised. That is the settlement that is proposed in this white paper that I hope garners widespread support.
Video link, Margaret Greenwood.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Integrated care systems have their roots in accountable care organisations, such as are used in America, in which individuals take out private health insurance. It is therefore hardly surprising that there is a great deal of concern about the introduction of integrated care systems here. So can the Secretary of State give a guarantee that he will legislate to ensure that NHS patient data cannot be used to promote or sell private health insurance or services to patients?
This isn't. I don't understand the logic of the honourable lady's question at all. I haven't seen those sorts of concerns that she raised about integrated care systems, which in the UK have provided the enjoyment of care that people have been looking for so long. I'm very happy to look at the details that she raises on the provision of data, but what I can tell her absolutely is that this is about NHS provision. It is not about the provision of healthcare through insurance, other than through the national insurance that we come together as a society to pay in order to provide healthcare free at the point of use. That is a belief that I hold dear, and I think is shared by the vast majority of this House and this country. I'm very happy to reaffirm that and reassure her.
Video link, James Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. As an officer of the APPG on obesity, I welcome this statement, particularly its promises relating to obesity policy, including limitations on unhealthy food advertising and new requirements for calorie information on food packaging. Will my right honourable friend outline the likely timescales for associated legislation, and in the interests of both fairness and efficacy, will he ensure that there's a level playing field between advertising by British television broadcasters and often overseas online services in terms of statutory extent and date of commencement?
Yes, these are very important measures. I'm glad that they have my honourable friend's support, not least with his extensive knowledge of this as a practising GP so much during this crisis. And I think the whole House is grateful to his commitment and his work. In terms of timing of legislation, I'm unfortunately not permitted, ahead of Her Majesty's next visit to the other place, to be able to go into any further details. But the white paper sets out reforms that we hope to have in place by April 2022. So I hope that he can take from that some indication of our sense of pace.
Video link, Debbie Abrahams.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Mr. Deputy Speaker, with one of the highest COVID death rates in the world and NHS workers under such incredible pressure at the moment, this is hardly the best time to be talking about yet another NHS reorganisation. In his response to me 2 weeks ago, the Prime Minister committed to addressing the key underlying causes of the high and unequal COVID death toll, primarily socioeconomic inequalities driven by 10 years of austerity. He said he would be implementing Professor Sir Michael Marmot's recommendations to build back fairer. So how will the proposals in the white paper address these inequalities, their impact on declining life expectancy, as we've heard, and how will they also address the highest excess mortality rate that we have in Europe?
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I generally would like to say that I disagree entirely with the honourable lady's pessimism about the ability of improvements to the health service to to assist in the closing of health inequalities and the provision of care. As a Greater Manchester MP, she will understand better than most the benefits that come from that sort of integration. The idea that we should fail to act on what the NHS themselves have asked for because of the challenges they're facing is completely the wrong way around. I see it entirely the other way, which is it is incumbent on us to act in order to deliver the improvements that the NHS is calling for. Video link? Andrew Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. During the last Parliament, I sat on a joint health and housing, communities and local government committee, and this latter I'm now pleased to be rejoining. This commissioned a report on the future of adult care, which left open care insurance type options to spread the financial burden, and so as not to create an ever larger NHS versus the critical local government role, but also crucially that choice and flexibility were enhanced for a 21st century care system. How will these aspirations fit into the plans that he's describing today?
The white paper takes forward parts of those proposals to do with the integration between health and social care and ensuring that it is those on the ground delivering both health and social care who can decide the best way to provide that for their population. We are committed to take forward funding reforms as set out in our manifesto. Those funding reforms are not part of this bill, but the Prime Minister is committed to bring those forward this calendar year.
I'd like to thank the Secretary of State for his statement today and answering 30 questions in an hour and almost 10 minutes. So thank you very much for that. Point of order, Mr. Jim Shannon.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, the point of order is this. I noted that the petition calling on government to trigger Article 16 to allow unfettered trade within the United Kingdom has been signed by today 138,000 people. Mr. Deputy Speaker, these are people from every constituency in this great United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. And my own constituency of Stratford has the highest percentage of constituent signatories. Can you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, confirm that this UK-wide demand upon government should be swiftly recognised in this House through a timely debate and further action to fill the shelves in Stratford and across Northern Ireland must be a priority, not simply for this MP, but for all MPs and therefore for this House. Thank you.
I'd like to thank the Honourable Member for his point of order and giving notice to the Chair that he was about to do so. As you know, it's not for the Chair to schedule debates on petitions, and that is for the Petitions Committee, and they can also take other actions also. So I suggest that he contacts the Petitions Committee as soon as possible, and as an experienced member, he will know that there are other avenues by which he can raise the matter, as he has so skillfully demonstrated just now. We're going to suspend for 3 minutes. Order.
has risen in the face of great difficulties. And throughout, people have done incredible things and worked in novel and remarkable ways to deliver for patients. And we in this house salute them all. Not just the nurse who may have had to care for 2 or 3 or 4 times as many patients as he would in normal times. Not just the surgeon who may have been called to treat patients beyond her normal specialism, but the managers across health and care who've come together in teams as part of a health family at local and national level, the public health experts who've been needed more than ever before, the local authority staff who've embraced change to deliver for their residents, and from all, a sense of teamwork that has been inspiring to see. As a citizen, I care deeply for the whole health and care family, for the values they stand for and the security they represent. They're there for us at the best of times, and they're there for us at the worst of times. As Health Secretary, I see it as my role, sometimes to challenge, but most of all, to support the health and care family in their defining mission of improving the health of the nation, caring for those most in need. I come before the House to present this white paper based firmly on those values, which I believe are the values our whole nation holds dear. The white paper is built on more than 2 years of work with the NHS, local councils and the public. At its heart, this white paper enables greater integration, reduces bureaucracy and supports the way that the NHS and social care work when they work at their best together. It strengthens accountability to this House, and crucially, it takes the lessons we've learned in this pandemic of how the system can rise to meet huge challenges and frames a legislative basis to support that effort. My job as Health Secretary is to make the system work for those who work in the system, to free up, to empower, to harness the mission-driven capability of team health and care, and the goal of this white paper is to allow that to happen. Mr. Speaker, before turning to the core measures, I want to answer 2 questions that I know have been on people's minds. First, are these changes needed? Even before the pandemic, it was clear reform was needed to update the law, to improve how the NHS operates and reduce bureaucracy. Local government and the NHS have told us they want to work together to improve health outcomes for residents. Clinicians have told us they want to do more than just treat conditions. They want to address the factors that determine people's health and prevent in the first place. And all parts of the system told us they want to embrace modern technology, to innovate, to join up, to share data, to serve people, and ultimately to be trusted to get on and do all of that, so they can improve patient care and save lives. And we've listened, and these changes reflect what our health and care family have been asking for, building on the NHS's own long-term plan. The second question, why now? Now as we tackle the biggest public health emergency in modern history. The response to COVID-19 has, in my view, accelerated the pace of collaboration across health and social care, showing what we can do when we work together flexibly, adopting new technology focused on the needs of the patient, and setting aside bureaucratic rules. The pandemic has also brought home the importance of preventing ill health in the first place by tackling obesity and taking steps like fluoridation that will improve the health of the nation. The pandemic has made the changes in this white paper more, not less urgent, and it is our role in Parliament to make the legislative changes that are needed. There is no better time than now. Mr. Speaker, turning to the measures.
One thing goes, they all go. Okay, ladies and gents, we're going to pause it there. We've got Essex Live. What we're waiting for, this is what a lot of people come through to listen to. What's going on in our local constituency of United Kingdom from where I'm sitting today. Thank you, Mr. Hancock. That is live inside Westminster. Absolutely phenomenal. We'll go back to that shortly. Amid after a few segments within Live of Essex. Piers Morgan of this morning. This is no business like show business. Piers Morgan's life stories with TOWIE star Gemma Collins in tears as she opens up to Piers Morgan about bullying.
can be, on all the critics on social media, probably I can quite imagine it, probably picking on her for a weight. Take a peek into what she's been revealing in an entertaining, shocking, emotional interview this Thursday. Gemma is said she's scared to leave her home. Gemma Collins gave a new raw and emotional account to Piers Morgan after being abused by strangers online and in real life. The ex-TOWIE star will feature on Piers Morgan's life stories on Thursday and February 11th, which is today on ITV. She opened up to Piers Morgan about her experience of being bullied at school. In the show, Gemma was shown crying after watching a video of people taking of the abuse she had received. She said, "That's hard to watch. You don't forget it, but that's the downside to fame. I'm a lot more comfortable now in my own skin." Piers has added, "The fish that, we found that some of these messages, please leave TOWIE and die. You hurt my eyes when you come on TV. Please just die and waste of oxygen. You're just a fat attention-seeking bitch," and so on. I mean, utterly vile. This is absolutely discrimination. People making judgment. It's not even qualitative evidence. It's quantitative idiots. Absolute juvenile activity. Absolute monstrosity. Human excrement. Doing bullying acts such as this. I feel for Gemma Collins, because being in the limelight, and then getting shocked back down to, these people are putting on a show for people to enjoy the show, not going on there to be somebody or go somewhere. They're just doing something for entertainment for viewers, and then you're getting discriminated. It's unfortunate. It's hatred. It's not fair. Piers spoke at length of Good Morning Britain on Monday about the disgusting comments they both received on social media when he tweeted about Gemma featuring on the show. I mean, I was an extra. Added extra. I was a bit more in limelight. I was actually in the scene with TOWIE, and I thought to myself, and I've done a lot of acting after that. I was on the Talk for Sport with Arsenal, a few other various things, and I thought these judgmental people painted a picture of me because I've always been a tremendous father for my children, but now I'm 88. People are trying to make judgment, point fingers, and make assumptions. So I can see where Gemma Collins is coming. People are trying to depict this person that she isn't. She's just doing it for entertainment of others. Why bully her? She's doing a good thing for a good deed. I'm doing a good deed today. I've got listeners coming in, people supporting the show. I might not be the absolute phenomenon. I know I'll give it the gift to the gab, but I don't let people. I drown my sorrow. Absolutely, I don't. I won't. And I'm not going to change who I am because my credibility has become a procurement when it comes to talking about etiquette sense. It really, you're supporting the show, you're enjoying it, and I'm talking etiquette with sense. A lot of optimism. I'm flamboyant too. Thank you very much. You don't have to tell me I know. Piers spoke at length on Good Morning Britain on Monday about the disgusting comments they both received on social media when he tweeted about Gemma featuring on the show. She shouldn't have to have the people wishing her dead with no repercussions. Well, focused on online trolling this morning, Piers Morgan feels the obscene abuse. Miss Gemma Collins received the moment he said he would be featuring on a new series of life stories. Gemma described one of the times where people actually said nasty stuff to her face, not online. It was so embarrassing once, she continued. I was talking to my mum, taking my mum for lunch. A van pulled up and they started abusing me. It wasn't for me. I felt so hurt that happened in front of my mum. Asked by Piers what it is that they were saying. She answered, "You fat, see you next Tuesday. Fat cow." Not very nice, is it? Gemma spoke about her ongoing struggle with overeating in difficult times. I think I've always turned to food in times of crisis, she added. I mean, any occasion I feel happy to eat. If I'm sad, I eat. I was going to say, when people suffer depression, they eat to get through the times and the struggle. A lot of people go overindulgent with alcohol just to get through the hard times. So you know what these people are up against? I mean, when I'm in this sort of situation, this is what I do. I'll project my voice. But it's not for everyone. It's not everyone's cup of tea. So, other people suffer in different ways. So talking about international bill of rights, the equalities, fair right, doesn't matter what you are. She's not a paedophile. She's a nice human being. So let's not rip her to shreds. I think it's about dealing with your emotions, trying to find a way of dealing with them in a healthy way and not turn into something that can harm you, because it is like a form of self-harm. Gemma also spoke about her child in Romford, Greater London, how she got bullied at school. She said there was no money, but we had a really lovely childhood. I can remember having my first probably big birthday at the Little Chef and thinking that was a really posh restaurant. And tenacity come from my dad. He used to work all hours under the sun and even do night shifts in the pub. She agreed with when Piers said that her mum had installed into her a lot of self-confidence, which caused people to bully her at school. Piers continued, mocking you for your self-confidence, all those bullies who punched you and chanted you and teased you and tried to prick their confidence. They're pricking holes in their confidence, aren't they? Trying to, mow her down. That's what they're trying to do. It's horrible. Absolutely distraught she must feel. If they're watching you as you sit in your Versace suit doing life stories, having just told me you've made £1 million of being out of being Gemma Collins, what would you say to them? Does it feel good to have rubbed in their taunt? Does it feel good to have rubbed their taunts in their face? Gemma said, I don't believe in revenge and two wrongs don't make a right. I hope they've worked on something within themselves. To what Piers replied, well said. As anyone suffering trauma with their children at school just because they're obese, it's not a nice thing to joke about someone's weight. It really isn't. I've been a part of that. I've been a part of it, bullied, and sometimes they say it takes a bully to become a bully, and you do find yourself bullying people for different things. And Rainbows himself was there. For none of us, absolute purity to life. We all got come different shapes and sizes. We all got a different story and tales to tell. But I'm not going to go back into that land of sin anymore. For many years now, I haven't gone to that land of sin. Chelmsford Hylands estate has links to slavery. Historic England says a number of places in Essex have been included in the report. Hylands estate in Chelmsford has been named one of several places in Essex linked to slavery in recent historic years in a recent report. The report titled The Transatlantic Slave Environment, a research which conducted by Dr. Mary Wills and linked to some of the country's most prestigious buildings. Hylands has been included in the report due to the period of the time that it was owned by the Hendrickson Courtwright. Courtwright bought to the estate in Chelmsford, Essex in 1997, lived there until the Courtwright was a Danish merchant, and this is his fortune was in large part founded in the sugar trade in the West Indies. In response, a spokesman of Chelsea City Council, who now own the estate, said, acknowledging part links to the slave trade in the stories of historic cities has an important role to play in creating a fairer future for everyone. Like many estates across England, previous Lebanon Highlands House has included a wide variety with different moral values, some of which we find abhorrent today. Cornelius Hendrickson Courtwright, who bought Hyland Estate in the 18th century, made it part of his large fortune from the sugar trade, which relied on labour of vast numbers in a short time. It is important not to forget this barbaric aspect of our history. In the present day, Hylands Estate isn't a memorial to any particular family and its current owner. Chelmsford City Council is clear in its condemnation of slavery then and now. In 2020, the council signed the Charter Against Modern Day Slavery and has recently set up an anti-racism work group to ensure the council pledges on diversity and equality are being met. Audley End in Saffron Walden, the estate was inherited by Richard Aldworth Neville in 1797, who had been appointed to the elected Marshal of Jamaica in 1962. He expanded the estate while his son made considerable changes to the house. Copper Hall in Epping. The hall was rebuilt in 1751-1758 on a site of Elizabethan House by John Conveyors I. His son John Conveyors II was a slave owner to St Kitts. He married Catherine, daughter of William Matthew and Baddow and Antigua in 1773. John Conveyors II made internal changes to the interior designed by James Watt in 1775 to 1777 and constructed a new southern gatehouse and entrance. and an entrance screen. Fingrenhove, it was the home of the Frey family. Thomas Frey had accusations with plantations in Barbados in the mid-17th century. Nazim Park estate developed between 1780 and 1820 by William Palmer, an Indian merchant and younger son of the prominent Leicestershire Palmer family. He had an estate in Grenadier, later inherited by his sons. In 1796, Palmer diverted the local road so he could extend the Nazim House, later park, to the designs of James Lewis. The estate was further enlarged by Palmer's son George. The house has had many uses and is now available as a rental property. We have a short break. We're now going on. That was Essex Live. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Make sure you share and subscribe. You know, it's good to see what's going on globally around the world. What is in your constituency? What is going on in the current climate? What is going on with the economic market? What's going on with trade? Stay tuned. Proclamation News and gatherings. Supporting equalities, International Bill of Rights. No fascist statements here. It's all calm, collective sense. Part of the aristocracy, social elite. Proclamation News and gatherings.
Of the same ecosystem. With an aging population, with more complex needs, that's never been more true. Achieve what they already work hard to do, to operate seamlessly across health and care without being split into artificial silos that keep them apart. The new approach is based on the concept of population health. A statutory integrated care system will be responsible in each part of England for the funding to support the health of their area. They will provide for the treatments that are needed, but support people to stay healthy in the first place. In some parts of the country, ICSs are already showing the way, and they will be accountable for outcomes of the health of the population and be held to account by the Care Quality Commission. Our goal is to integrate decision-making at a local level between the NHS and local authorities as much as is practically possible, and ensure decisions about local health can be taken as locally as possible. Next, Mr. Speaker, we'll use legislation to remove bureaucracy that makes sensible decision-making harder, so freeing up the system to innovate and to embrace technology as a better platform to support staff and patient care. Our proposals preserve the division between funding decisions and provision of care, which has been the cornerstone of efforts to ensure the best value for taxpayers for over 30 years. But we're setting out a more joined-up approach built on collaborative relationships so that more strategic decisions can be taken to shape health and care for decades to come. At its heart, it's about population health, using the collective resources of the local system, the NHS, local authorities, the voluntary sector and others to improve the health of the area. Finally, Mr. Speaker, the White Paper will ensure a system that is accountable. Ministers have rightly always been accountable to this House for the performance of the NHS and always will. Clinical decisions should always be independent. But when the NHS is the public's top domestic priority, with over £140 billion of taxpayers' money spent each year, and when the quality of our healthcare matters to every single citizen and every single one of our constituents, Mr. Speaker, of course the NHS must be accountable to ministers, ministers accountable to Parliament, and Parliament accountable to the people we all serve. Medical matters are matters for ministers. The White Paper provides a statutory basis for unified national leadership of the NHS, merging three bodies that legally oversee the NHS into one as NHS England. NHS England will have clinical and day-to-day operational independence, but the Secretary of State will be empowered to set direction for the NHS and intervene where necessary. This White Paper can give the public confidence that the system will truly work together to respond to their needs. Mr. Speaker,
Speaker, these legislative measures support reforms already underway in the NHS, and they should be seen in the context of those broader reforms. And they're by no means the full extent of our ambition for the nation's health. As we continue to tackle this pandemic, we will also bring forward changes in social care, public health, and mental health services. We're committed to the reform of adult social care, and we will bring forward proposals this year. The public health interventions outlined in this white paper sit alongside our proposals to strengthen the public health system, including the creation of the National Institute for Health Protection. And last month, in our mental health white paper, we committed to bringing forward legislation to update the Mental Health Act for the 21st century. Mr. Speaker, this landmark white paper builds on what colleagues in health and care have told us, and we will continue that engagement in the weeks ahead. It builds on more than that. It builds on this party's commitment to the NHS from the very beginning. And eagle-eyed visitors to my office in Victoria Street will have noticed the portrait of Sir Henry William, who published the white paper in 1944 from this dispatch box that set out plans for a national health service that was later implemented by post-war governments. Throughout its proud 72-year history, successive governments have believed in our health and social care system and strengthened it for their times. I believe the NHS is the finest health service in the world. I believe in the values that underpin it, that we all share responsibility for the health of one another. Its extraordinary feats this past year are unsurpassed even in its own proud history. And once again, we must support the NHS and the whole health and care system with a legislative framework fit for our times and fit for the future. A more integrated, more innovative, and more responsive system, harnessing the best of modern technology and supporting the vocation and dedication of those who work in it. This white paper is the next step in that noble endeavour, and I commend this statement to the House.
The Shadow Secretary of State does that. 5 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the Secretary of State for advance sight of his statement, and I suppose we should thank Andy Cowper for advance sight of the white paper as well. Now, we are in the middle of the biggest public health crisis our NHS has ever faced. Staff on the front line are exhausted, underpaid. The Royal College of Nurses says the NHS is on its knees. Primary care and CCG staff are vaccinating and will be doing so for months ahead, including possibly delivering booster jabs in the autumn. And today we learn that 224,000 people are waiting over 12 months for treatment. And this Secretary of State thinks this is the right moment for a structural reorganisation of the NHS. Now, we will study the legislation carefully when published, but the test of this reorganisation will be whether it brings waiting lists and times down, widens access, especially for mental health care, drives up cancer survival rates, and improves population health. Now, of course, we are not surprised he has ended up here. We warned ministers not to go ahead with the Cameron-Lansley changes 10 years ago. A reorganisation so big you could see it from space, it cost millions, it demoralised staff, it ushered in a decade of wasted opportunity. And of course, he voted for them, he defended them in this chamber. So I hope when he stands up, he will tell us he's wrong to support them. Now, we have long argued for more integrated care, but how will these new structures be governed? How will they be accountable to local people? How will financial priorities be set? Because when something goes wrong, as tragically sometimes it does go wrong in the delivery of care, or when there are financial problems, like we've seen at Leicester's Trust, where does the buck stop? Now, he is proposing an integrated care board tasked with commissioning, but without powers to direct foundation trusts, which spends around 80 billion of employees, around 800,000 staff. So he's suggesting a joint committee of the ICS and providers as well. But who controls the money? Because that's where power flows from. And both of these committees will overlap with a new third additional committee, the Integrated Care System Health and Care Partnership, which includes local authorities, Health Watch, and even permits the private sector to sit on it. All these committees must have regard for the local health and wellbeing board plans as well. So how will they avoid clashing agendas lack of trust between partners, as we've seen at the ICS in Bedfordshire and Luton, for example. Because nobody wants to see integrated care structures which can't even integrate themselves. And legislation alone, of course, is not the answer to integration. We need a long-term funded workforce plan. We've not got one. We need a long-term cross-governmental health inequalities plan. We've not got one. And we need a sustainable social care plan. We were promised one on the steps of Downing Street. We still don't have one. Now, when he voted for the Cameron reorganisation 10 years ago, it was because he wanted, I presume, in the words of the white paper at the time, to liberate the NHS. But now he's proposing a power grab that was never consulted on by the NHS. It seems he wants every dropped bed plan to reverberate around Whitehall again. And he's announcing this just at the very moment the NHS is successfully delivering vaccination. In striking contrast to delivery of test and trace to PPE early on, where he was responsible. So again, we will look carefully at the legislation, but why is he so keen for these new powers?
We're moving on.
It's the prodigious, the prominent professor at Proclamation News and Gatherance. Thank you so much for coming through and actually supporting the show. Thank you ever so much. We're talking about the Home Secretary could face contempt out of court charge. Please excuse the ignorance of humanities that's entered the digital radio at Castbox FM. We are live on YouTube as well. We're live on all platforms. Thank you all so much. The police and the people that are breaching ASBO in the comments, please ignore. They're just breaching ASBO anyway, so that's none of our problem but their own. Anyway, Home Secretary Priti Patel could face a charge of contempt of court after failing to follow an order to house an Iranian sex offender. She is the MP of constituency of Witham. Priti Patel, Home Secretary. The High Court said it wants to know why the Home Office had failed to comply with the mandatory injunction. It is exceptionally rare for judges to threaten ministers and their officials with contempt of court over a failure to follow a court instruction. A Home Office spokesman said the department had already apologised. The row with the court emerged in a judgment published on Tuesday about a failure to provide emergency housing to Karajan Arshad Farfullah Mohammed in the northwest of England. The Iranian national was jailed in 2016 for 20 months of sexual offence involving a child. Absolutely human excrement there. Just like that person that just entered the building, poor fella. Anyway, left jail but not deported. Foreign national defenders jailed for more than 12 months typically face deportation from the UK. But Mohammed was bailed from immigration detention in May 2018. Last October, he asked for Home Office for basic emergency housing under a law for dispute people whose claims to stay in the UK have been rejected, but who are also not likely to be removed from the country in the near future. A week later, the Home Office officials told him he would be found in a bed, but accordingly to a High Court judgment, that did not happen. Bear with me 2 seconds, ladies and gents. There we go. No accommodation. A fortnight before Christmas, officials said they were still struggling to find suitable accommodation because of both applicants' criminal conviction and enormous pressures that the pandemic had placed on the Home Office managed accommodation system. On January 29th, a High Court judge ordered the Home Secretary to act because of Mohammed was still sleeping rough. Support workers said he was at risk of killing himself on contracting coronavirus. After 5 days, still nothing had changed. They should let people like this just catch coronavirus and give everyone else the vaccination. Gary Glitter got the vaccination just recently, as we see it in the paper. In the protocol for Gary Glitter, what is the procurement of letting him have the vaccination? There is no significance why he should be saved and not the likes of me and you. After 5 days, still nothing had changed. A lack of action triggered a new court order from a second senior judge demanding Home Secretary explain what was going on. A senior government lawyer then confirmed there had been a failure to comply. The delay in providing accommodation to the claimant was due to difficulties that the Home Secretary has faced with compliance in the light of the current demand on the asylum support system, said the lawyer in a letter. I accept that. The Home Secretary should have made an inappropriate application to the court for an extension of the time once it became clear that it could not comply with the previous order. London round trip. Immigration officials then proposed putting Mohammed in London hotel. That plan required an unrealistic late-night round trip by taxi from Manchester at their expense. As a result, he slept on the streets again. Officials have now told the court that suitable accommodation has been found in northwest of England. I mean, it's a suitable accommodation. He's in a hotel where families, other children are. Should he be allowed? I think he should be left on the street. Priti Patel has done a magnificent job. Although in an ethical sense, she has to apply by the law, unfortunately. But, you know, if she's got eyes and ears and a brain cell like me, you wouldn't want to protect a paedophile in the system or within the law anyway. But Mr. Justin Chamberlain, the second of the two judges to intervene in the case, said the Home Secretary must now provide a full context of what happened, and the court will consider whether the failure should lead to full contempt of the court hearing. This is the ancient offence of disobeying and ignoring the court and its orders. The government's own guidance says anyone found to be in contempt could go to prison for up to 2 years, get a fine or both. In practice, warnings of contempt of courts are sometimes a means publicly force an individual or organisation into properly complying with an instruction. In his highly critical ruling, Mr. Justice Chamberlain said breach of an injunction is a matter of which can result in proceedings for contempt. This is so even where the breach is by a minister. If the evidence provides sufficient reassurance that the breach was not international and that measures have been put in place to avoid any reoccurrence, further proceedings may be unnecessary. Home Secretary has until 4 p.m. on the 22nd of February to respond. The Home Office spokesperson said, "We have apologised to the court for failure to comply with the court order in time and will be submitting a full statement which explains the reason for his delay. Sourcing accommodation for individuals with convictions of this nature can be particularly challenging, and we have also seen increasing pressure on the asylum system. Due to the pandemic, it is standard practice for secretaries of state to be named in court documents for legal actions brought against their departments. The BBC has contacted Mr. Mohammed's lawyer for comment." In a court's defence, I mean, I'm like a Priti Patel, I'm like a Nicola Sturgeon, I'm like a Boris Johnson, I'm like a mini Piers Morgan. I just want to give you from a qualitative evidence. I mean, I had a beholder, eye for an eye, ear for an ear, tooth for a tooth. She wants justice done to this paedophile, but what's the mental state of the paedophile? That's what the courts are thinking. There's always someone above the legislation, which are the judges, and the internal integrity. They're looking from the outside source. Why did he commit paedophilia? What was happening in his mental state of mind? Was it narcotic abuse, alcohol? Maybe he's been getting bullied. They've got to think outside the box, give them almost on a second lifeline. Don't deserve it by all means. I cannot stand anything in that jurisdiction when it involves children. Absolutely shocking, absorbing information, to say the least. But you've got to sometimes grab the ball by the horns and give it a squeeze to find, get the qualitative evidence out of the human being to find out the true story behind it. And that is exactly why she is up for breaching the law, the rule of law, basically. And they've got to look into it. These internal integrity people, such as higher legislation, as not ministers, these are judges, internal integrity, absolutely overlooking things in a both kind of perspective, so to speak. So we're looking at procurement. We're looking at procurement. Why did they? Where did it happen? How did it happen? What was the state of the mind of the man? I know that they're letting off people like Go Glitter and all them kinds of people are getting let off later date because they look into the qualitative evidence. Why, where, and how did it happen? Was it something to do with a prolapse of a relationship? Was it his wife, sticking substances, evil substances into his thing. Vice versa, it happened to women as well. So it's not just pick on men. I always pick on men on this subject, but there's women in schools as well picking on kids, which always get left out of the tabloids. Always gets left because fathers are like, it's all right. He's 16. He got raped by a 42-year-old woman. It's okay. It's okay. But it's not okay. How can a man get tarnished with a worse brush than a woman? I don't know. But anyway, not digging holes in women. I'm not picking on women, but supporting it as an international bill of rights. Equalities. We're all equal for your actions. Stella Creasy threatens legal action over paid maternity leave for ministers. Labour's Stella Creasy is threatening legal action against the government if they do not include all MP in paid maternity leave plans. The government is attempting to change the law so ministers do not have to resign if they have a baby. The move was prompted by Attorney General Stella Creasy, who is due to give birth next month. Miss Creasy, who is also pregnant, welcomed the change but said it should not just apply to those at the top. She told BBC Radio 4 Today programme, "I think every woman should be able to have their paid maternity cover, proper cover. It's not just about being paid, it's that somebody else will be doing that job. So Stella Creasy will be able to take proper leave with her child. My concern is that the message Parliament sends, if we only offer that woman at the top, is that somehow maternity leave is a benefit like a company car, then something that every woman should have." MP currently have maternity leave, but not all their duties are covered during their absence. As it stands, Miss Braverman would have to resign her post in order to take time off during the birth. Mr. Creasy was the first MP to be given the locum maternity leave cover. Walthamstow MP said she had been told a lie for 2 years that MPs couldn't receive formal maternity leave because of the employment status. But she added, pushing the ministerial and other maternity allowance bill through Parliament in a single day, as the government hopes to do later, shows that you can. The MP who is expecting her second child said lawyers had advised her the bill was discriminatory as they only benefit senior ministers and not other members of Parliament. Thousands of pregnant women are facing risks in the workplace, including risk of loss of their job. The message that they were sending is that they treat maternity leave like a benefit, like a company car, she added. Labour is not planning to oppose the bill. Parental rights in the UK. Women are entitled up to 52 weeks maternity leave. They must take at least 2 weeks leave after the baby is born, or 4 weeks if they work in a factory. They are eligible to be paid for up to 6 weeks at 90% of their average weekly earnings and 33 weeks at £151 per week, or 90% of their average weekly earnings, if lower. Fathers can take weeks statutory paternity leave of up to £151 a week. Some couples are also entitled to share parental leave of up to 50 weeks and 37 weeks of pay. Essex Live. Parental rights. It's important to know your parental rights if you're at work. Essex crime. Three arrested as police raid properties in Braintree and Witham. They remain in custody for questioning. 3 people arrested by police following drug raids in Braintree and Witham. Officers executed warrants at the address of Calder Tuesday the 9th. A 47-year-old woman and 2 men aged 47 and 25 were arrested on suspicion of being concerned in supplying drugs. They remain in custody for questioning. The rest are part of the investigation into supply drugs in Braintree between July 2020 and January this year. An Essex police spokesperson said drug lines prey on vulnerable people are linked to violence and exploitation. While the majority of residents will never be affected by gangs, these criminals are causing misery in some areas of our communities, and we are determined to protect those most vulnerable people from harm. We can do this by working together as a community. If you're worried someone you know is involved in gangs and need help, or you have information about drug neighbourhood, you can submit a report online. Alternatively, you can call 101. Information can also be given independent. Charity Crime Stoppers, 100% anonymous on 0800 555 111. Make sure you do it because there's so much juvenile activity going on in all different constituencies of United Kingdom. I'm just going to I want to go on LBC just shortly, see what's going on LBC Radio Live this morning. They're one of my
they're one of my co-partners. I do like listening to LBC on a frequent basis. Not quite frequent as I used to, but I do like LBC. On Proclamation News and Government, I'm trying to develop my own brand. Tom Swaby is very, very, you know, I like his perspective. I like his aristocracy. You know, his aristocracy, professionalism of it. He's very well mannered, well spoken.
Regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. Capital at risk.
Morrison's celebrate Valentine's Day with award-winning sauce and prosecco for $4.99, Cadbury milk tray for £3, and Ferrero Rocher for £5. Morrison's, making it with love. Majority of stores and online, subject to availability. Milk tray 360 grams, Ferrero Rocher 300 grams was £6. Ends 14th of February. Sauce and prosecco 75 cents litre. Ends 16th of February. Please drink responsibly. If you're an EU citizen and were living in the UK by 31st of December 2020, you must apply to the EU settlement scheme. If you miss the deadline, you could lose your existing right to live and work in the UK. You still need to apply, even if you have permanent residence. The deadline is 30th of June 2021. Don't wait any longer. Visit gov.uk/EU settlement scheme and get started today. Irish citizens or those with valid indefinite leave don't need to apply.
Whether you're fancying owning a swimming pool big enough to have its own yacht, or just a yacht big enough to have its own swimming pool, what you need is premium trip money. The Euro Millions jackpot keeps getting bigger with a massive £143 million stand for grabs in Friday's draw. That's premium trip money. Euro Millions, national lottery. Play on app, online, and in store. Estimated jackpot. Account terms, rules, and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
The stunning Samsung Galaxy S21 series is here with next generation camera and video. It's epic from every angle. And with Vodafone, you can save £360 guaranteed. Simply trade in a Galaxy S9 or S10 using our trading tool. Order online now and save £360 on the Galaxy S21 series. Ready? Vodafone.
Based on saving £15 per month on a 24-month plan. Return device must pass trading checks. Details and terms at vodafone.co.uk. Tom Swarbrick on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973. Afternoon, here's Anne on Twitter. Tom, they should say honestly, we don't know yet. The government should. That's different to being confused and sending confused messages. That's what's wrong. Your message is confused. Well, now I'm confused about who's confused at, but you're absolutely right to say the government is sending out confusing messages about whether holidays are on or off. But they shouldn't even need to answer that question, because I think most people looking at the situation don't believe that you can give a yes or a no to that question, and so the government should be honest and say we don't know yet. But it's a confusion of their own making that I don't really think has any real world implications. I don't really think people are watching what the government says on this and thinking, oh well, if they're confused, I don't know what to do. I think most people look at it, judge it for themselves, and take a decision. I don't think they need the government to say yes or no at this stage to whether or not they can go on holiday, to be honest. 0345 6060 973 is the number. Come back to that in just a moment. Because if it's not Brits who are able to go abroad, it's our plucky little COVID variant that seems to be wandering around the world at the moment. Unfortunately, the coronavirus variant found first in Kent could become the world's dominant strain, according to the head of the UK's genetic surveillance programme. This is Professor Sharon Peacock saying the new variant has swept the country and it's going to sweep the world in all probability. Professor Greg Towers joins us, Professor of Molecular Virology at UCL, head of the Towers Lab at that university where they are studying COVID mutations. Thank you for joining us this afternoon, Professor. Why this particular variant, and why is it proving so troublesome to mean that it's going to spread across the globe?
Well, this is a new virus, COVID-19, or SARS-CoV-2 as the virus is called, and it is slowly adapting more to humans, so it's becoming more transmissible. This particular variant, which appears to have evolved in the UK, seems to be particularly good at transmitting, and therefore it is getting advantage over the other isolates.
Do we know why or how it is so good at transmitting? What's changed to make it so transmissible?
So we're starting to work that out collectively, scientists, and it seems that the spike protein is changing, and that basically makes it work better and makes it slightly less sensitive to immune responses from the first wave.
Is it possible for it to mutate to become less transmissible?
Basically, viruses, all they need to do is transmit. That's the thing that they do. And so all of the evolution really is about transmission. So no, they don't typically evolve to become less transmissible, but question, but I'll ask it anyway. Why Kent? I mean, why did it happen at that point in time in that place? Do we know? It's just chance. So viruses evolve, all viruses evolve, and it just turns out that virus evolved in Kent. But it's worth pointing out also that the UK has sequenced at least about half of the viral sequencing that's been done on SARS-CoV-2. So we are likely to be the people that pick up variants first. But this one does appear to have evolved in Kent. And so the rest of the world has a problem with the Kent variant because it's spread out of Kent and into Europe and then on to the wider world. Do you agree with the assessment of Professor Sharon Peacock that it is about to take over the globe? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it could. There are other variants that also appear to be more transmissible. The South African variant, for example, and more variants will emerge. And when it comes to the ability of the vaccines to stop the transmissibility of any virus, how well prepared are AstraZeneca, are Pfizer, are Johnson & Johnson to deal with this particular variant? So these companies know how to make vaccines. They know about viruses. Basically, the virus is changing, and so the vaccine needs to change as well. And measures are in place to meet those changes appropriately. Using things like flu vaccine, therefore, big flu vaccine every year. Things this one. As AstraZeneca have said, they're on course to roll out a vaccine affecting variants like Delta, which assumes that over a long time, proteins definitely do vaccine people ignore them. It's one of what you put up and what you make find international travel and variants. You think payoff is being given for current is in this country and chance of getting out to other countries is very difficult. I don't know how it's going to be managed. I think it is important to manage international spread of the virus. I mean, the goal, of course, is to vaccinate as many people as we can so that internationally virus infections are reduced. In the case that we're doing better than everybody else, which, is the case at the moment, and our virus levels go down earlier than everybody else, then yes, we're going to want to restrict borders. We don't want people bringing any virus in, and we particularly don't want more transmissible variants. Good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed, Professor Greg Towers, Professor of Molecular Virology at UCL, head of the Towers Lab, where they are studying COVID mutations. Just on the border restrictions, I've just seen a tweet here from journalist Nathan Lee saying the mandatory quarantine hotel booking system is now open for arrivals into the UK from Monday the 15th of February. However, there seem to be some difficulties with actually trying to book a hotel on the first day of that scheme. They don't seem to be available. We'll speak to Ben Kentish a bit later on about this, whether that scheme is open and how it's functioning now that it is. Let's come back to your calls on summer holidays and the confusion that is coming from government, whether it is confusing you. Janice is a new caller in Farnham. Hi there, Janice.
Hi, John. How are you?
Yes, I'm exceptionally I'm optimistic.
Yes. Well, I'm just ringing to say that I'm not confused about holidays or booking holidays because I listen to my own common sense and I don't need to be told by the government whether I can go on holiday or not. Although obviously it's up to them. But what I want to say is we're getting a lot of pressure about people booking holidays, wanting to go on holidays, and this is the same situation that we had before Christmas. People wanted to meet with their families at Christmas, and they were put under pressure, so they gave everybody one day at Christmas for mixing with their families. And then we're told today that a third of the people that are in hospital now mixed with their families at Christmas. We don't want this happening again because of holidays. And can I just say that I've listened to people saying that they need holidays, that their children need holidays, and they're looking forward to holidays. I think the only thing we should be looking forward to is eradicating or controlling this virus, not getting the virus, not having people in hospital, and not having people dying. And if we can wake up every morning and not have COVID, I'm really not thinking about booking some holidays. And I'm not.
Janice, listen, I realise it's down the list of priorities here, but what's wrong with somebody booking a holiday on the basis that they could look forward to the possibility that it might happen? I don't understand why people are so upset about other people's view that a holiday and the thought of a holiday might be the thing that gets them through this lockdown.
Well, that's fair enough. If they want to book a holiday, then book it. But obviously, if it's going to be cancelled, I think that's something that they have to probably expect to happen. But as you say, I don't think this priorities at the moment. I mean, I'm not boasting, but I have 6 holidays abroad a year.
6?
Last year, yes. Last year, I didn't get any.
Are you a spy or something? I mean, you seem like you work for MI6 or something, going around the world that regularly, Janice. What's going on?
Well, I just travel a lot.
Fair enough.
I'm lucky that I can travel a lot.
Have you had, and you've cancelled all those 6 for the last 12 months?
Yes, they were all cancelled. They were all cancelled. And I'm not booking any for this year until, obviously, you know, a lot more vaccines are out and people are safer and it's really safe to go.
I honestly don't think that people... I mean, so we put a small amount of money down to try and get to a summer holiday overseas this summer, and I don't think it's going to happen. And if I end up losing the money, well, silly me for thinking I could book one. I don't think international travel is going to be all that likely this summer. That's just my own view. Hopefully it will be, particularly for those people whose relatives and family are overseas, whom they haven't seen for possibly the best part of a year now. For those people, I totally take your point, Janice, that the idea of a holiday is well down the list. They just want to see their mum and their dad again. But getting out of the country, it seems to me, is going to be the thing that is sacrificed in order to have greater freedom within this country once the lockdown measures start to come off. More of which we'll discuss a little bit later after the news at 2. Janice, thank you. 0345 6060 973 84850 to text. You can tweet this afternoon at LBC. Tom Swarbrick here on 45.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast. LBC. It is estimated around 2 million over 70s have yet to have their inoculation. What's the matter with you? This will make you safe for yourselves, your children if you're fortunate to have them, your grandchildren. What do you need to hear? 2 million of you get the jab. Otherwise, the idea of getting so-called herd immunity will be set back, and lockdown will be set back. So don't be so damn selfish. Get the jab. Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Weekday mornings from 7. LBC.
I'm from a small town in Lancashire, and growing up, I just always wanted to move away. But then my geography teacher took us around Holly. So I'm there, walking through nature, and he begins explaining our home to us, why it's so special. He showed me the trails my grandfather took, and also his grandfather before him. That teacher taught geography, but really, he was teaching me who I was.
Teaching. Every lesson shapes our life. Get free one-to-one support with our teacher training advisors to get one step closer to the classroom. Subject to eligibility. Search Get Into Teaching. Jimmy's finest steak for 2.
Me and Dad share all the cooking now. Since everyone went their separate ways. So I'll pop into Tesco, grab a couple of their finest steaks, sprinkle in a thyme, splash of olive oil, and pan fry it. Oh, I'm cooking tea for 2, alright, but tonight it's for me dad and his date. And usually we add garlic, but I'll skip that this time, if you know what I mean.
Make any evening special with Tesco finest 30-day mature British sirloin steaks. Food Love Stories brought to you by Tesco.
Another night in, another takeaway brainstorm. Well, here's an idea. How about the family feast from KFC? It's big, it's chickeny, it's delicious. Comes with sides, fries, and a bottle of drink. That's dinner sorted, right? So get ordering. The 6-piece family feast for just $13.99, only at KFC. Prices may vary. What am I saving for? My passion, food photography.
I trained to be a landscape garden designer.
Open a food stall and sell my famous fish tacos.
I go to stuntman school.
I'd be a wedding planner. I'd start a dog grooming business. Sorry, we'd start a dog grooming business.
What are you waiting for? Make your one day happen with a Fidelity Stocks and Shares ISA. Your capital is at risk. Tax rules may change. Full terms for our stocks and shares ISA are available on our website. 18 plus UK residents.
On your phone, it's just a video of a garden kickabout. On a new Samsung Galaxy S21, it's
An epic sporting moment captured 14 different ways using single-take technology. A stunning portrait of a stricken keeper. Warrior garden gardens. A close-up of a determined striker. Ready to share the glory. There's links.
the new Samsung Galaxy S21 Plus 5G. Made for the epic in every day. Available now.
Mr. Free? I've been waiting for you.
I know you're there.
Wherever you are.
What do you want? Recorded on 360-degree sound. Starring Lucy Allen and Pearl Maggie. Sour.
I'm inside.
An Audible original podcast. Listen Audible now. Don't listen in the dark.
deals are here with great offers across our fast, reliable 18-month fibre broadband plans. Average speeds from 38 up to 145 megabits per second, and prices starting from just £22 a month. All with award-winning super safe online security included. Perfect for streamers, gamers, callers, workers, and shoppers. Get high speeds and low prices with our winter deals. Search TalkTalk Fibre. Talk for everyone. Offer in 17th of Feb, subject to local availability. Packaging, T's and C's apply.
Minus 10. How fast could you boost your credit score with new Experian Boost? 6, 5. Boosted already? For the first time ever, you can boost your credit score instantly for free with new Experian Boost. Only at Experian.co.uk. Experian account linked to your current account is required. Score increase subject to status. Tom Swarbrick on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973. Nick is in Berkshire this afternoon. Tom, please, could people stop talking about holidays? I've not seen my daughter since last January. I have been vaccinated and will be tested as much as you like, but just let us see each other, says Linda. I completely and utterly understand, Linda, that people's priorities start with let's see our families again and then go from there. But I do think that for those people who want to go on holiday, it helps them get them through this lockdown by having the very thought that they might be able to go on holiday. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that, and there has been confusion from the government about their messaging over this. That confusion would be very easily scotched by just saying, listen, sorry, we don't know yet. I don't think, though, as people are suggesting, that there is confusion in the public as a result of the confusion in government. Paul's in Corrie Mill Hill. Hi there, Paul.
Hi, lady.
Yeah, good to say your thoughts.
My thoughts are, obviously, number one, obviously, the health and safety of all, of UK residents and around the world is most important. However, I see no issue with people wanting to book holidays, looking forward to something, and actually booking holidays. If you want to take a risk compared to multiple holidays, the risk you're taking. I mean, we've actually booked 2 holidays, one abroad and one in the UK, on the same dates, for both fully refundable. Obviously, we hope to go abroad, but if we can't, because it's dangerous to do so, then we hope that we will be able to go to one in the UK. Obviously, we have to wait and see if that's allowed as well, but we're now looking forward to it. We're excited about it. Obviously, safety comes first. If we're unable to go, we have to accept that.
Absolutely, because I think there will be, governments worry about setting precedents unnecessarily. So there might be a worry that if they say, yes, you can go, and it ends up being that you can't go, they've set your expectations running incredibly high. When you cancel your holiday because the government say you have to, you will blame them.
I think you should, again, you're being honest about it, and you kind of, I think Boris is trying to say right now, what I've heard him say is, he said it's too early to tell, and it probably is, but there's no harm in saying to people, look, if you want to book a holiday, feel free. We don't know if it's going to be available abroad. We don't know if it's going to be in the UK, but you have to check the terms and conditions of where you're booking, and if there's a risk you're going to lose some money, you have to know what you're booking. And actually, the challenge is that, reality is there might be a small deposit to pay. We were actually willing in the UK holiday to pay a deposit, I think like you said, actually pay, lose a tiny bit if we had to have it as a backup. Actually, we ended up going on to Airbnb, booking a house. It was fully by a certain date, a week before we were going to go. So to me, it seemed like a no-brainer.
Paul, I think you're right. I think this is part of the difficulty of nations and people within them having to live with the idea of uncertainty, and governments are not good at governing on the premise of uncertainty, and I think that is being shown through some of its confusion internally about what they're saying on this. Thank you very much indeed for your call. Come to Rosemary and Wimbledon in just a moment. Let's bring in Ben Kentish, OBC's Westminster correspondent, on the start-up then of the hotel quarantine scheme, which I understand is now available for people to book their place on. Tell us more.
They had some teething problems already because the portal that is now online for people to book those quarantine hotels, I've just tried to test it out by booking one at Heathrow. The policy comes into force on Monday, of course. Anyone arriving from a red list country from Monday needs the quarantine, and yet there are no hotels at Heathrow on the booking site until Wednesday. So that is going to be something the government is going to face some questions over, whether it is a case of simply not having enough rooms or whether it is an issue with the portal itself. A couple
couple of other bits of confusing, Tom, as well. We were led to believe that the policy would be in place for the quarantine policy would mean people had to quarantine for 10 nights. It's actually 10 days, 11 nights. We were also told by a government press release, and it's still on the government Department of Health website, that the cost for a single adult would be less than £1,750. Well, just try booking for a single adult, and it will also charge me £1,750. So several teething problems there. The most concerning to ministers, I think, will be the fact that people due to arrive in the country from on Monday from Heathrow seem unable at the moment to book a route. Not going well, this is it, and they've only got 4 days to sort it out. Ben, thank you. LBC's Westminster correspondent Ben Kentish with the very latest for us. Rosemary has been waiting patiently in Wimbledon. Hi, Rosemary. I'm very well. Thoughts this afternoon? Your thoughts this afternoon, Rosemary?
I think that it's really quite a normal reaction to look forward to things. So for people to have a holiday to look forward, even in everyday life, is a positive thing. And my granddaughter last year, after the first lockdown, they were planning to go to Sicily. It's already been booked way before anything had happened. And they decided as a family that they would shield for 2 weeks before. And although she was only 20 years of age at the time, she told me that she was more than happy to shield for 2 weeks and not see her friends, because she really wanted to go on holiday and have a different environment after everything that they had experienced. And so first of all, I think I wouldn't book a holiday because my mental health couldn't take the uncertainty of it. I recognise that it's a very uncertain situation. However, I think the problem is the reason why we are not getting a clear strategy for every issue, every single thing, education, children's food, etc., etc. Everything has either been a U-turn after it's been a disaster, or just to prevent it from becoming a disaster. And I think the biggest problem we've got is it's the leadership. And I'm not going to go into I might as well, the complete dishonesty and distrust of this government, but we have a Prime Minister who has been sacked from every single employer, I believe, for dishonesty.
I don't think he wasn't sacked from his job as Foreign Secretary, although my view is, Rosemary, he absolutely should have been. He resigned as Foreign Secretary, but
yes, he should never. Well, probably he did that to save face, but he
did it to do exactly what has happened, which is he did it to be able to run for the leadership of the Conservative Party.
It was all a thing. So here's a man who can create a strategy to get himself Prime Minister, but he can't create a strategy for running the country. The best thing any good leader would do is surround themselves by the best people in that field. So you don't appoint somebody to be heading up a fundamental change, for example, in the NHS system, who turned around a week or 2 weeks ago and said that the mutation of the virus took everybody by surprise. No problem. So we have a Prime Minister.
What about Kate Bingham? Because there was lots of talk about cronyism at the appointment of Kate Bingham, who happens to be married to either a former or a current, can't quite remember, Conservative minister. She's done a great job.
I haven't followed Kate Bingham as much as
She was the woman who chaired the vaccine task force. This is the body that was responsible for seeking out, purchasing and ordering the vaccines that are now saving people's lives in huge numbers.
And yes, in terms of the rollout, that project is going great. And I would say a big part of the reason why it's going great is because they are using the NHS at its best. So if they had used the NHS to track and trace, let's face it, the NHS have been skilled in track and trace because of the STD clinics that they've been running.
Absolutely, and certainly with the help of the military for the logistics and the way in which it's been rolled out, it's a tremendous success. Test and trace absolutely has to work, otherwise we aren't going to be having summer holidays because this thing is just going to rip through again. Rosemary, thank you. Pat's in Oxted. Hi there, Pat.
Hi. Oh, we found a marvelous idea. We've been there before. We're going to Stopperton, and it's a super place. It's got patios and deck chairs and a barbecue, and you can have all your food delivered. It's really lovely, and with lovely comfy beds and bliss, and you don't have to think about going to work for 2 weeks. And if it rains, it's got a lovely comfy lounge with a television and a record player or DVD and all sorts of games. We went there last year. We're going to go again this year.
Even if Boris Johnson says you can't?
I don't think he can stop us at this place. It's called Stopton.
Well, I hope you enjoy yourself there, Pat. It sounds like you're going to go anyway. Thank you very much indeed for your call. I want to move on because I want to talk about something that Sir Jeremy Farrar has said today. He is the former Professor of Tropical Medicine at the University of Oxford, Director of the Wellcome Trust, involved in SAGE. He's told Boris Johnson not to set out a roadmap out of lockdown. He says setting a date now for March or April doesn't make sense. The data has to drive it. In 2020, we lifted restrictions. The Prime Minister has said he is going to set out a roadmap in the week commencing the 22nd of February. Given how tough this lockdown has become, do you need some end in sight, even if the government can't stick to it because the virus hasn't abated? On your radio, on Global Player, and
Hey, LBC.
leading Britain's conversation, this is LBC. From Global's newsroom at 2 o'clock, Matt Hancock says reforms to the NHS in England will see health and care services working more closely together. The Health Secretary's plans will reverse much of the framework introduced under David Cameron's government in 2012. The tendering rule, which sees private companies competing for contracts, will be scrapped. Mr. Hancock has rejected criticism about the timing of the announcement.
The pandemic has made the changes in this white paper all not less urgent, and it is a role in Parliament to make the legislative changes that are needed. There is no better time than now.
A mother who suffocated her disabled son during the lockdown has been detained in hospital indefinitely. Olga Freeman admitted the manslaughter of 10-year-old Dylan at their home in Acton in West London in August last year. The court heard the 40-year-old had become overwhelmed by multiple pressures during the pandemic. Scotland has now given a first dose of a coronavirus vaccine to more than 1 million people. It follows an increase of 63,000 injections over 24 hours, the highest daily total of vaccinations administered. First Minister Nicola Sturgeon has praised everyone involved.
When you think about the truly dreadful weather that most of the country is experiencing right now, which means that many of those administering and receiving the jags will have had to brave extreme elements, deep snow, to get to vaccination centres, I don't think it's an exaggeration to describe this as a heroic achievement.
More than 13 million people across the UK have now been given a first jab. People who attended a house party in West London are facing coronavirus fines of more than £13,000. Officers say the property in Knightsbridge had been rented specifically to host the gathering last Saturday. And British number 2 Cameron Norrie is through to the third round of the Australian Open tennis. He beat Russia's Roman Safiullin in 4 sets. Heather Watson is out after losing to Anett Kontaveit of Estonia in Melbourne. In the city a short time ago, the FTSE 100 was trading up a point at 65.25. The pound buys $1.38 and €1.14. And the weather, another very cold afternoon. Most places staying fine and dry there. A few sleet and snow showers in northeastern Scotland. Some rain and snow developing in the West Country. A high of 4 Celsius. From Global's newsroom, I'm Thomas Watts.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Tom Swarbrick.
Very good afternoon to you. Just gone 2 o'clock. You're listening to Tom Swarbrick and Fashula Fogarty here this afternoon on LBC. If you've just joined the programme, very warm welcome to you. In discussing the confusion emanating from government about holidays, yes, no, on, off, we're talking about the difficulty of living with this degree of uncertainty, which of course we've all had to live with for a very long time. And I don't know about you, but certainly the last few weeks and months of this particular lockdown has felt interminable. whether it's the difficulties of homeschooling or juggling the homeschooling with work or just the relentlessness of it, I get the sense that a lot of people are finding this lockdown far tougher than any of the previous two. The first one, there was a bit of, it was obviously incredibly worrying and terrifying, but there was a newness to it. The second one, to be honest with you, didn't really feel like a lockdown at all. This one feels right now like it doesn't have an end point. And I do wonder to what extent, because we talk about the mental health crisis that is building and building and building as a result of all these things, I wonder to what extent people who have not had their door darkened by mental health illnesses yet are starting to wonder why it is they're feeling the way they're feeling and what they can do about it, because they can't see an end in sight. They can't see the hope on the horizon. They can't see the end of this. And so moments where the end feels like it's approaching are absolutely vital in order to keep people optimistic, in order to keep people actually to abide by the rules that they're being asked to live under, because they can see an end to it. And to that end, Boris Johnson has said that he will outline a roadmap out of this lockdown in the week commencing the 22nd of February. Now, it was, I think, meant to be the 22nd of February on the day, but that seems to have slipped ever so slightly. Okay, fine. But the week commencing the 22nd of February seems to be the point at which the government will say, if not when exactly, this is how the government is planning to get us out of lockdown. Again, don't know about you, but I've got that date written down that week because I'm desperate for someone to tell me who actually has the decision-making powers to get us out of this. I am desperate for someone to say this is how it's going to end. There's only so many times I can dream of the possibility of going to the pub again, or the potential of going on holiday, or having a normal summer, or watching some football in the company of other people, whether it's the Euros or whatever that's going to be on the television this summer. Just some sense of normalcy. The idea that we could reach that, I think, is absolutely critical for people. Giving them a sense of hope and purpose is important right now during this. So I saw the comments by Sir Jeremy Farrar, former Professor of Tropical Medicine at the University of Oxford, Director of the Wellcome Trust, warning Boris Johnson not to set out a roadmap out of lockdown, saying setting a date now for March or April doesn't make sense. The data has to drive it. In 2020, we lifted restrictions too quickly, he said. It's not sensible to set a date when restrictions will be lifted. Those restrictions can and they will be lifted, but only when the data allows that to be true. I appreciate, he says, that businesses have to plan and everything else, but the data has to drive it. 2020, we lifted too quickly when the data would not really have allowed that, and frankly, as a result, the transmission went back up in this country. Transmission is still incredibly high. If transmission was still at this level, we were not in lockdown, we would be going into lockdown. There are 750,000 people today in the UK infected. There is still huge pressure on the NHS and on critical care. We have made enormous progress. The UK.
Sorry about that, let's just try and work out what happened there. Tom Swarbrick on LBC, ladies and gentlemen.
Proclamation news and Gavins with the prodigious, the prominent professor at PNG. It is Thursday, the 11th of February. 4 weeks in this month, 29 days. Thank you all for coming through. I'm actually supporting the show time and time again. Please share and get more people to subscribe. We're trying to build a bigger, better platform. I really appreciate everyone listening, tuning in, giving their perspective, their political views. Obesity, appetite, drug could mark new era in tackling the condition. Look, there's a lot of obesity in a lot of families. You know, they've got a slow working thyroid, and they put on weight. It's people shouldn't bully people that put on weight. It's not their fault in some circumstances. Bully people whatsoever. Maybe you should give people instruction to slow their eating down rather than put them down. Saying a nice, you know, if they're overindulging in drinking, binge drinking, binge eating, try and help them to better themselves rather than put someone down, make them feel miserable about their endomorph, you know, body structure. Try and help them to say, look, enjoy life. This is the way you can enjoy it. You got to be nice, got to be subtle, and employ manners. Employ manners. Manners have become free. Employ manners. it's very, very important that we employ manners in every given task. When you're talking to somebody, say, look, I'm a bit obscure about your weight. You seem to be putting stress on your heart. You need to think about your life. Think about your life resources, your children, your aspirations that you're leading for your children. You need to try and better your mental health and your health, and your mental health, your wealth and your health, because your wealth becomes your mental health and your just your health in general. Absolutely, living by your means. A drug that suppresses appetite has led to some people losing more than a fifth of their body weight. A majority of international trial shows a weekly injection of the drug semaglutide was given alongside advice on diet and fitness. It's spelled Semaglutide. Semaglutide or semaglutide. Semaglutide, sorry. Semaglutide. It might be pronounced semaglutide. Semagla, Lutide, was given alongside advice on diet and fitness. The study conducted on almost 2,000 people showed on average 15k weight loss during the 15-month trial. Scientists said the results could mark a new era in treating obesity, within more therapies on the horizon. Jan from Kent lost 28 kilograms, 4 stone, equivalent to the matter more than fifth of her body weight. The drug changed my life and completely altered my approach to food, she said. She said dieting had made her miserable, but taking the drug was completely different as she was less hungry. Effortless. However, Jan has come off the trial, her appetite has returned and she is putting weight back on. She said, I felt effortless losing weight while I was on the trial, but now it has gone back to feeling like a constant battle with food. The semaglutide will already be familiar to some people who use it as a treatment for type 2 diabetes, but this trial looked at giving a higher doses. The drug works by hijacking the body appetite levels and mimicking a hormone called GLP-1 that is released after eating a filling meal. The trial gave some people the drug and others a dummy injection, while both groups were given the lifestyle advice. The result, published in the New England Journal of Medicine, showed people lost on average of 15 kg on the semaglutide compared with 2.6 kg without. However, 32% of the people lost a fifth of their body weight with the drug compared with fewer than 2% on a dummy treatment. New era. Would it help people with heart condition? That is what you need to see with your scientific advisor at the hospital. Speak to your local surgeon. New era. Professor Rachel Batterham from UCL and one of the UK researchers told the BBC new website, "This is a game changer in the amount of weight loss it causes. I've spent the last 20 years doing obesity research. Up until now, we've not had an effective treatment for obesity apart from the bariatric surgery." She said losing weight would reduce the risk of heart disease, diabetes and severe COVID-19. Semaglutide is being submitted to drug regulators, so cannot be routinely prescribed. However, Professor Batterham expects the drug would be used initially by specialist weight loss clinics rather than being widely available. There are side effects to the treatment, including nausea, diarrhea, vomiting and constipation, as there are 5 studies taking place to see if weight loss can be sustained in long term. Professor Sir Stephen O'Bailey of the University of Cambridge said the amount of weight loss achieved is greater than that's seen with any licensed obesity drug. This is the start of a new era for obesity drug development, with the failure direction being to achieve levels of weight loss comparable to the semaglutide while having fewer side effects. Dr. Duane Meller, a dietitian and from Aston Medical School, said it is useful to have potential option to help people lose weight. However, we need to acknowledge that weight loss will still need lifestyle changes and that any medication or change in lifestyle can bring potential risks and side effects. So it is always wise to speak to a health professional before trying to lose weight. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, there you go. There you have it. Amid a procurement to your weight loss to get a better lifestyle. Possibilities to speak to your health advisors. It's a magnificent what these doctors, these professionals can provide for people suffering obesity. No one deserves to be bullied or picked on, but you can better your aspirations in life. I just want to say thank you ever so much for tuning in daily to Proclamation News and Gatherance. It's absolutely phenomenal to have you all here supporting the show time and time again. I just want to say God bless, take care. It's icy out there, so if you don't, try not to leave your house if possible, unless it is for a courteous call to the shop to get your essentials, shopping essentials to keep you alive. Stay safe, wash hands, wear masks, keep distance. Just be safe. God bless, take care, one love.